Hello, fellow data enthusiasts. Welcome to the second episode of Data Analysis with Excel. In this video, we will cover 5 objectives. 1. We are going to import and clean a data set, use formulas to summarize data, apply filters and sorting to find insights, create a simple chart for visualization, spot and fix common beginner mistakes. Let's get right into it. For the sake of our tutorial, we're working on a very small data set of about 11 rows, and this will help us as beginners to apply basic formulae to it and see how it all works out in Excel. I'm going to open the data quickly. I have that in my Excel already. So this is a data set on a monthly sales of a company. So the date stamp is on the first column. We have the product. So this company sells fruits, about 5 types of fruits: apples, bananas, oranges, and grapes. Okay, there are 4. We have their quantities, their unit prices, and we have the sales. So same apples, we have 120, and also we have 90 and 110 quantities. Okay, so every product has its unit price, and the column E is the sales for, let's say, apple with quantity 120. That's the sales. So we can use Excel to generate these sales values by just writing our formula and then we run through. So we are going to quickly copy this elsewhere and try to use Excel to generate these same answers. Okay, so before I forget, sometimes your data won't be given in a tabular form like the one I've presented to you today. Sometimes the data is presented in a comma separated version, the CSV, where you have date, comma, product, comma, quantity, comma, unit price, comma, sales, comma. So with that data set is messy. So you need to select the entire data set, then you go to data, we have text to column. This button will help to split your data set into columns by specifying what is separating them. So it's commonly separated by a tab, a comma, a full stop, and so on. So you select the character separating your data points, and Excel will nicely transfer all your data points into tabular form, looking like this. So for this tutorial, we're not going to do that since our data set is already in a tabular form. So we head straight into other analysis. So that part will be the cleaning data set for analysis. So we're going to use formula to generate the sales of each product in the supermarket. So for Apple, to know Apple's sale, we multiply the unit price by the quantity. So you have about 120 apples in your shop, and its unit price is 0.5. So when you multiply the unit price by the quantity, we get the sales for that particular product. So you can decide to type your formula here, or when you select a cell, you can start typing your formula and it still reflects in the formula bar. So we can click on our cell, and once again I said to know the sales, we multiply the quantity and the unit price. Every formula starts with the equal to sign, so we begin with that, equal to. So we write, we are going to use cell referencing because we are going to apply this same formula to the subsequent products below. So when we use the direct numbers, i.e. 120 and 0.5, Excel will take that and work with it. But when we try to let the formula affect the remaining rows beneath, we're going to get errors because we didn't reference the cells but rather use the actual values. So Excel is going to use that actual values to cut across every other data point you will try to affect the formula with. So we need to use cell referencing. So for apples, its cell reference for quantity is C2. So we have here, the name is over here, C2. Okay, so to multiply C2 and D2 in Excel, asterisk is for multiplication, and we also select D2. You can either select or type. So this is our formula, equals C2 star D2. Excel is, I understand this formula as multiplying whatever value in the cell C2 and also the value in the cell D2. So when we press enter, we have 60. And that was what was there initially. So we were able to generate a formula to get us the sales for each data point. So to reflect or make sure you autofill your answers with the remaining cells, you can drag your mouse pointer to the small square at the bottom right. You double click and voila, all the sales appear for each and every product. So you see that you get the same answers for what was already written. So let's try and see. Instead of using cell referencing, let's use the actual values and see what happens. So we have equals 120 plus 0.5. Sorry, times 0.5. So yes, we have 60. Let's see if it can work out. So the moment I autofilled, I had 60, 60, 60, 60, 60. This is because Excel is using the actual values in the cells C2 and D2 to work out for all of them. But we want the formula to be generic so that at every step in another cell, it uses the values over there. That's why we use the cell reference in the names of the particular cells. So equals C2, okay, star D2 will give us the answers we want. All right, so we move on. So we now have our sales. We can get rid of this. So how do we then find the total sales? How do we then find the total sales? You can use AutoSum to get the total sales. But from what I talked about, looking at the status bar, when you select anything, you get info about that particular sales at the status bar without even calculating. So when I select this entire column for sales and you look at the status bar, we have average 56.805, we have count 10, and you have the sum 568.05. So the sum, and I also talked about total sales. So the total sales for each and every product in the shop, we have to sum all of them together to get the total sales. Okay, so we have, you can say total sales. Then since we highlighted this, we saw 568.05. We can write that here, 568.05. So without any calculation, we have it. So let's try and use a formula to also get the same answer. It shouldn't be different. So remember, all formulas start with equal to. So you can say equals sum, then bracket opens. We have to tell Excel which of the values it should sum. So we can select the entire column of the sales. Then we close the bracket and we hit enter, and we are getting the same answer, but the first one was quite simpler, effortless, and the second one we have to use our formula, the sum formula. So the sum formula adds any given numbers or given cell references. Okay, so this also has to do with relative cell referencing and then absolute cell referencing. So we use the dollar symbol to tell Excel whether to use relative cell referencing or absolute cell referencing. So when you use relative cell references, it actually changes anytime you move to the next cell. Or when you use absolute cell references, it picks that particular value and runs through all of them. So we're going to take an example on that and also see how it changes our results. Let's do some small editing and format our columns. So we have 6 columns here: date, product, quantity, unit price, sales, and total sales. So when you click on the date column and we come to home, this part is where we do the formatting. So the date, we can choose date, right? So we have date or short date. Since we shorten our date, we can use short date. So it's already formatted. We come to quantity, it's general, or you can also say it's a number. Unit price is in terms of money, so we can format it into currency. Okay, so my default currency is pounds, if I'm right, or the euros. So we can equally edit that to any currency of our choice. So we click here and we select. So we have the Hawaiian dollar, the French dollar, United States dollar, and so on. So we are most familiar with the United States dollar. We click on that and it changes. Our sales too is going to be money. Since we multiply a unit price by the quantity, we need to format the sales column too with what currency. So we'll do same changes and select the United States dollar. Okay. Our total sales as well is a currency. We do that quickly. Okay. So we have basically formatted our columns using their respective meanings. So when it's money, make sure you are having your currency symbols attached to it. What if we want to know the product selling very well with very high sales? Okay, so we can sort our data into uh, the lowest to the highest or the highest to the lowest. So we click on sales, the column sales, we move to data, we have sort. So sort and filter. So today we are using one feature, the sort feature. Okay, so sort by, we have our data heads. So date, product, quantity, unit price, sales, and total sales. So we focus on the sales and sort on an order. So sort on the values, yes, the values in there. And the order, we have smallest to largest, largest to smallest. So if you are looking for other things, you can go to a custom list and also choose your preferred or create your own order. So I want the lowest or the smallest to the largest. The moment I hit OK, I have mine data range from the smallest to the highest sales. So we have bananas with quantity 80 giving us the smallest sales, and then oranges with quantity 200 giving us the highest sale, which is $84. So basically that's how we use sorting. You can sort it anyhow for easy reading or easy presentation. So you can do same and sort it from largest to smallest, and everything changes from largest to smallest. Okay, we can also filter some important products and also look at how they are performing without um, having all the other products and then scrutinizing to see what you are interested. You can easily filter the needed products out and now see their unit prices and sales. Imagine you are working on this data where you have about 10,000 products, like a big mall like Melcom with their inventory system, and then you're supposed to check out some products. You cannot be going through one by one, but with the filter option, you can just filter the needed one out and now you record its quantity, unit price, and sales. So we want to filter out, let's say, apples only. So when we select the entire data, we go to filter. So the moment you click on filter, let's see something. Take a critical look at the header. Okay, right after the name, you see a drop down arrow appearing the moment I click on filter. Take a look at it. So we have these drop downs that will help us do our filtering. So I want to filter a particular product out. So I click on a drop down near that column and then on check select all. But I want apples only. So I click on apples and I click OK. So now I have all apples in my data set. So apples where the quantity is 110, apples 120, and apples 90. And I have them here. So you can just be on checking and checking all the needed values you want. We want grapes. We have that. Okay, so this about filtering. When you're done, you can easily clear them and have your data or your full data with you. Let's try some things on sum and averages. So basically, we've tried sum and that helped us to get a total sales. So you can also try average. And with the average, you can use the formula equals average. Or when you select the items you want to find the average, you quickly check the status bar to have a look at the answer without even bothering the formula. So we want to know the average of the total sales, or the sales, the sales. So please, so we use the sum to find the total sales, and that was the same as what the status bar previewed. So we have 568.05 as the total sales. And then we want to know the average sales. So averagely, status bar is telling us that the sales is 56.81. So you can also create something for that. So average sales, you can also format and make it currency. And the average was 56.81. I'm going to try formula to give us the average of the sales. Try that and see if it's the same. So equals average, and we have that here, average. We double click on it and now you have it. So the average of the entire column, close your bracket, hit enter, and it's the same as what the status previewed, and that's for the averages. what happens when there's an increment? Let's say a 10% increase on our unit prices. How do you then calculate the new sales for every item? So our unit prices has been increased 10%. So we need to calculate the 10% increase for all of the various unit prices. Now calculate the new sales for each product. So over here, we're going to make use of the absolute reference. This is because we are increasing we are increasing every unit price with what? A 10% change. So that 10% is going to run through all of the unit prices. So we use the absolute over there to instruct Excel to use 10% for all of them. So if you want to find a 10% of a unit price, what do? We multiply 10% by that unit price, and that value will be the 10%. And now we add it to the value already existing for each unit price because there was an increase. So when we are decreasing, we will subtract that value you get after multiplying 10% with every unit price. You subtract it from that unit price. So let's try that. So we have the cell I1 where we have 10%. Sorry, let's write it anywhere. So we have 10% here. Now we are going to make use of this cell to calculate the unit price. So now let's create this 10% increment. So we want to know the 10% increment of every product. So equals bracket opens. We're going to use the absolute reference, okay, star multiplying this, okay, then plus the same value again, D2, D2. Let's close the bracket and see. Oh. Okay, so we have got the dollar sign. Let's see. Enter. So we have 0.462. We want that to affect every other unit price. So we double click and we get it. So when we click on grapes with quantity 100, its initial unit price was 0.70. So now we have calculated the 10% increase. So the 10% increase will result from the formula, the cell reference $4. Okay, so I4 is a cell reference for the 10%. We multiply that with the original unit price, and then we add the original unit price again, and the new value is the increase. So we do that, and then we have this. Let's imagine we forgot to bring the dollar sign. Let's see what happens. So let's run through and see. So we are having 0.7, 0.6, like our original values. This is because after Excel executing this 10%, the cell reference I4 for the first one. It stopped there since we are using relative. So subsequently, if this cell uses this cell is also going to use this one, I5. This cell is going to use the follow one. This one is going to use the follow-up one, like that. So when you look at the formula, you see I8. But the moment we make it absolute with the dollar sign and we run, it's going to keep or hold the 10% constant and now give us the 10% increased value. With our new 10% increase, let's try and calculate the sales after the increment. So now the sales formula was unit price times the quantity. So now our unit price has changed. So we can say that we have new sales after increment. So the formula is going to be what? Equals new unit price star our old quantity. And then we autofill. So the prices are varying now. Initially, oranges with 200 quantity was 84 cedis, but with our new 10%, it is 92.4. So you see, Excel is able to do all these calculations in splits of seconds. Very, very powerful. So there are a lot of formulae you have to get abreast with that will help you. You don't necessarily need to chew them off head, but then the basics ones, you have to get them. And the more you practice, the more you get to know the existing or more advanced formula that will help you in advanced work. To continue learning, and the data set for this video will be provided in the link in the bio where you can download and also practice. Let's try some visualizations. So we are going to plot the date and also the sales. Let's use the old sales. So when we select our two columns needed for our work, we go to insert. We can insert a line chart, okay, and just clicking on this, you have several styles you can pick from depending on what you want. So you have this showing the patterns in the sales with respect to time. So this is a basic visualization you can do for your data. Just clicking on insert, you have a whole lot of charts. When you click on this small option, it opens up the entire visualizations in Excel. And with time, you get to know the uses of all these, when and how to use them. Okay, so this is the end of our second episode. Hope it was useful. Let's try and practice and understand the basic concept and prepare for episode 3 and incoming ones. Thank you for your time and let's learn together. Bye bye.
Please note that all the necessary data and details for your rehearsals can be found at the description section. Please review it carefully and use it to rehearse. Thank you very much.